Hey guys, I know it's been a while since I've done one of these because I've been so caught up with vlogs lately, but the past few voiceover videos I've made have all been about predicting the next major roller coaster for every Six Flags Park, Cedar Fair Park, and SeaWorld Park. But what about those not part of a big amusement park chain? While corporations do dominate the amusement industry, every now and then you stumble upon a park independently owned and operated. These range from family-owned properties to chocolate brands with their very own amusement park. In this video, I want to take a look at each of the major independently owned amusement parks situated in the United States. With this, it'll be quite a bit harder to predict what their next coaster might be since you don't have as good of an idea as to what ride manufacturers they could work with. Six Flags and Cedar Fair each have upwards of 10 amusement parks, so you start to get a bit of an idea as to who their favorite manufacturers are. For that reason, I don't think I'll rule out too many manufacturers, but as a result, each of these predictions are probably going to be less likely than those in the Six Flags, Cedar Fair, and SeaWorld videos. But alright, without further ado, let's get on to the predictions. If it wasn't obvious enough already when I called out the chocolate brand with their very own amusement park, I was of course referring to Hershey Park in Hershey, Pennsylvania. That's what we're going to be starting with first, since they are by far the largest independently owned amusement park in the country. If you ask any roller coaster enthusiasts, they'll tell you the parks with the best coaster collections in the United States are Cedar Point, Six Flags Magic Mountain, and then probably Hershey Park. With 14 operating coasters and seemingly no large gaps, this is a really tough one to figure out. Before this year, I would have said the obvious answer is an RMC conversion for their wooden coaster Wildcat, but now that that's all said and done and the ride looks amazing, we have to begin to think outside the box. Hershey Park's next coaster is one that I think will be a bit graceful, since Wildcat's Revenge is a very intense ride that was pretty much built for the hardcore thrill seeker and enthusiast crowd. So it's for that reason that I think Hershey Park's next coaster may very well be a B&M, especially seeing the success of Candemonium in 2020, which is an absolute crowd pleaser. Now, I used to side with a dive coaster, but Dorney Park is set to receive one in 2024. And since Hershey Park would probably rather avoid redundancy, I don't think it's a dive coaster that'll be added to the park. Instead, how does a B&M wing coaster sound? It's surprisingly been since 2015 when we last saw one of these added to the US, that being Thunderbird at Holiday World, but these seem to be as popular as ever overseas. And while we're on the topic of Thunderbird, I too think they should consider putting a launch on their wing coaster. Currently, Stormrunner is their only launch coaster, and it's kind of surprising that there isn't another. Plus, with a limited amount of space to work with, a launch cuts down on the amount of room they need to fit in a wing coaster. So finally, I'm proposing a launched B&M wing coaster for Hershey Park as their next major roller coaster. Up next, let's head to Santa Claus, Indiana for Holiday World. This is a very interesting one because they only have 5 coasters and they're known for their wooden ones. They have 3 of the best wooden roller coasters in the world, and in 2015 they added their first big steel coaster to the mix with the aforementioned Thunderbird. This was a risky move for the park, but from what I've been able to tell, it's been a major success for them. Having been personally, I think Thunderbird looks a little out of place at Holiday World, but it seems like I'm in the minority there. So I'm not at all opposed to them receiving another steel coaster to add some further variety to their lineup. I was thinking a family coaster would be a great fit here, but it was just revealed that a family boomerang will be added to Holiday World in 2024. So instead, let's go with a different steel coaster option. How about a Gerstlauer Infinity coaster? I think of something like Monster at Adventureland in Iowa, which is another park that when that was added, they were a family-owned business. I think it's definitely different enough from Thunderbird to where it could work really well in their lineup. Another park with a lot of wooden coasters is Knoebels in Elysburg, Pennsylvania. This is a true classic amusement park with 3 old school Woodies, and weirdly enough, they too added a big steel coaster in 2015 with Impulse, and that really threw some people off since it was unlike all of their other rides. But I think Impulse was a cool fit here, especially since it's so compact. It just works so well in their lineup. In the future, I'd like to see them take a similar approach, but this time with some sort of launch coaster. I love the sound of one of those new generation Vekoma models at Knoebels, particularly the Top Gun, which seems like the most compact of them all. After Codaland Open Circuit Breaker, if that's a success, I think it could be the gateway for other independent parks to build Vekoma thrill coasters in the future. Lagoon in Farmington, Utah took a very peculiar approach these past few years by building roller coasters partially on their own. This is what us enthusiasts call an in-house build, and Lagoon started doing this in 2007 when they were unsatisfied with Zero's work on Wicked. This explains why the second half of that ride is so much weaker than the first half. They built it on their own, and they didn't have a lot of experience back then. But clearly the park got better with Bombora opening in 2011, Cannibal in 2015, and the brand new Primordial debuting this year. I know Lagoon has been totally against adding coasters from other manufacturers, but part of me is holding out hope that they'll order an Axis coaster from S&S Worldwide just an hour up the road. This scenario reminds me a lot of Silverwood, finally getting an RMC of their own after having been in North Idaho for years. Then again, Silverwood and RMC has worked on smaller projects together in the past, and it's my understanding that Lagoon and S&S have only done work together on their drop tower. But what a cool fit that would be, so I'm just gonna hope and pray that Lagoon makes the call to put in one of these into their park. Silverwood in Athol, Idaho is a park with 7 roller coasters, including the just mentioned Stunt Pilot that opened in 2021. Silverwood was once all about their wooden coasters like several parks in this video, but over time that started to change, and something that none of their steel coasters have is a launch. Frankly, I think an S&S Axis with a launch would be a great fit at Silverwood, but to avoid redundancy, how about an S&S Air launch coaster like Max Force at Six Flags Great America? This would give them one hell of a launch as well as another coaster that focuses on inversions to complement their pre-existing lineup. I think a short one of these would be within the budget of the park and would draw in thrill seekers from all around the country. Up next is Adventureland in Altoona, Iowa, which technically is no longer an independent park since it was bought by Palace Entertainment in 2021. But I'd like to believe the previous management at Adventureland have some sort of say as to what coaster they should add next by recommending manufacturers or something similar. Whatever the case, I really just needed the script to be longer, so I'm adding Adventureland to the mix. Adventureland is a tricky one because they only have 6 coasters. One of those is Monster, a true standout ride for this park, but I'll tell you, if they really want to give this place a real 1-2 punch, have them RMC one of their wooden coasters. Both Tornado and Outlaw are flawed wooden coasters in need of an upgrade, but if I had to choose one to get the RMC treatment, I'd say Tornado. At least Outlaw has a maritime. On the other hand, Tornado, yeesh, that thing needs some help. I don't actually think Palace has worked with RMC at any point in the past, but it's never too late to start, and if they wanted to start with Tornado, I think they'd have a great new friend in the industry. Mount Olympus theme park in the Wisconsin Dells is another one of those parks filled to the brim with wood, but unlike Holiday World and Knoebels, they haven't added a steel coaster to change course a bit, and if I had to guess, it's probably because they can't afford it. I seriously struggle to understand how this park turns a profit, but whatever the case, this is a video talking about their next coaster, not a prediction as to when this said coaster might be added. Still, I think a Gerstlauer Eurofighter would be in the realm of possibilities for Mount Olympus. It would be a short ride, but it's relatively inexpensive and gives them an inversion-focused coaster. If they don't want a ride like this because they think it would take away from the inversion on Hades 360, well then you could build a Eurofighter without inversions. It would probably be a little bit tamer, but I still have faith that Gerstlauer could do something cool here. And plus, they have a lot of other family coaster models that Mount Olympus could benefit from. Indiana Beach, while technically a part of the new Indiana Beach Parks and Entertainment group, still to me qualifies to be on this list. This year we can expect the relocated Schwarzkopf Triple Loop to open at the park, adding an intense steel coaster to their lineup. In terms of available space and potential budget constraints, I think a compact steel coaster will be what's added next even after the Triple Loop is opened. But Indiana Beach doesn't have a launch coaster, and if we want to combine these things, we wound up with a Vekoma thrill coaster once again. Of course, this could be from a variety of manufacturers, but Vekoma just sounds right for Indiana Beach, so that's what I'm going to be going with. Next up is Waldameer in Erie, Pennsylvania. It's a super small park with just 5 coasters. All of those are pretty mild with the exception of Ravine Flyer 2, the park's incredible Gravity Group wooden coaster. Still, I think Waldameer could use something to up the intensity further while also taking up a small amount of room. The ride in question should be an RMC Raptor coaster, one of the prototype layouts, like Stunt Pilot at Silverwood. Since Waldameer isn't ever too busy, the capacity wouldn't be much of a problem, and because there isn't a Raptor anywhere close, this could be highly marketable for the park. If not this, I also think an RMC conversion of Comet into one of their family coasters would also be a terrific fit, but I'm unsure if they'd want to ditch a ride of such historical significance. Luna Park in Coney Island, New York is a compact amusement park owned and operated by Zamperla. Therefore, they only really like to put in their own attractions. While the flat rides here are great, the coasters are lagging since Zamperla frankly doesn't make good coasters often. Except I think there's a lot of potential in some of their new stuff. If you look at their double heart model for instance, that would be a huge, albeit compact launch coaster that I could legitimately see come to the park. If you look at Luna Park's layout, it's kind of made up of different strips, some of which being their own ride areas and some being individual rides like the out and back looping coaster Thunderbolt. I could totally see another one of these strips be the future home to a double heart, but only time will tell. To wrap up this video, let's talk about Glenwood Caverns Adventure Park in Colorado. Now, parks this small I normally wouldn't expect a major coaster from, but with Defiance recently opened in 2022, they showed us that they mean business. Even so, what I'm about to propose is a serious wildcard pick, so take it with a major grain of salt. I think Glenwood Caverns should seriously consider a Vekoma flying coaster as their next big thing. I wouldn't expect something like this to come anytime soon, but could you imagine a coaster where riders are in a prone position looking down at the mountainside? A bit more realistic would have this be a slow section over a cliff before turning into the actual layout at ground level. But whatever the case, I think Vekoma and Glenwood Caverns could come up with something amazing here. We saw what they were capable of with Fly at Phantasialand, but this to me would be on a whole other level of ambition. With that being said, I'd now like to conclude my video talking about the next major roller coaster at each of America's major independent amusement parks. Let me know in the comments what you think these parks should get in the future, because honestly, anything could happen at any of these places. If you enjoyed my concepts, please leave me a like and subscribe to Coaster Dash for more content like this in the future. Until next time, I'll see you all very soon. Bye guys.